Alright, hello and welcome to Faction War Episode 1. At this point in the game, everyone just finished forecasting, so if you don't know what forecasting is, go ahead and check out the previous video. And in this video, we're going to talk about Episode 1 and how that works. Now these videos are mostly geared towards game masters, so that if you're running a Faction War game, if you're running a Trinity game, you know how it's supposed to work, and this video will kind of take you through step by step how it works. So, Episode 1. We actually, throughout the process of this playtest, we had an original way that we were approaching it, and that original way kind of killed everyone, so we revamped it a little bit, and we're going to talk about the revision and the new way that it goes. So, I'll just start out by reading it in the what is this, a Google Doc. And there should be a link to the Google Doc right in the How to Play section of the Faction War server, so if you're ever wondering, how do I access this document? Go to How to Play. That should have a link to the Google Doc, to the skills sheet, and all sorts of stuff that you need. So, Episode 1, Isolation. The forecasts are complete, and now the full story situation is unveiled to all players. Every player will face an Obstacle 2 test, using a skill of their choice. Players role-play the approach of their character to the situation before teams form, posting a paragraph or two on the in-character portion of the server. Each character considers the situation at hand and decides upon a story goal to achieve that aligns with their chosen skill. Players may confer with the Game Master out of character if they need more information to invent their goal. Players then perform a dice roll to see what happens. There will be one designated in-character channel where you can perform your dice roll. To roll, and this is, obviously instructions for the players. To roll, post your obstacle level and articulate how your character is attempting to surpass it and their story goal. Post your base stat level, the level of any of your applicable skill that you're using, and anything else that may modify your roll. Roll the appropriate amount of dice using the Discord function, and that shows you how to do it so that you can roll dice in Discord. And then, if a moderator is available, pin your roll results to the channel for easy reference until the Game Master has collected and narrated the results. If the player fails, conditions and/or story consequences are imposed, and the moderator narrates the results. Failing players also receive 1 resolve point, because we want to have a little something for people that fail to keep them in the game, to keep them having some hope. If the player succeeds, the moderators explain how their success moves their character forward in the story, and the player may choose one of 3 game rewards. We'll get into the rewards a little bit in a minute, but first I'm going to talk about kind of why we set it up that way. Episodes 2, 3, onward, those episodes tend to deal more with the teams that form. So Episode 1 really provides the most work for the Game Master, because every single individual player is doing something on their own, and that means that you have to narrate a lot of different things. Once they group together, it gets a little bit easier to deal with because the number of situations goes down to the number of groups. And that's why the way we have it open up is we have the players decide what are they trying to do and how do they approach it. Because if the Game Master had to dictate everything, well, again, in the original version of the game, I was just like, okay, here's what your goal is going to be, and then everyone has to try to beat this goal. But that doesn't really give the players a lot of initiative, it doesn't really draw them into the story, and when they have to decide on their own, when they have to imagine, okay, given this situation, what would my character try to do in it? What would my character try to achieve? What skill would I use? Then they have to start making things up, and as soon as people start making things up and thinking in terms of what would their character do, that's when the roleplay starts to get a little bit fun. So let's look at how one of these examples went. Let's see. As you can see, you've got the factions where people can talk to other people in their own faction. We're going to go to Troika in character. Non-Newtonian is one of our playtesters, and he chose the category of intellect. And here he wrote a little bit, so you see it doesn't take a lot of work. If you don't have a lot of time, you can just write a little quick paragraph like this. And his thing is attempting to disrupt or redirect radio signal via using power on the transmission tower at believed radio station. So his goal is to disrupt, destroy, or redirect the signal without taking down the tower and causing alarm. Must reach or surpass 2 for success. So his base stat in intellect is 3. He's using a skill called mechanical aptitude, and that skill is level 2. And so he's rolling total 5 dice, as you can see right there. And he rolls 5 dice, and he succeeds twice. He gets 2 results that are higher than 3. He gets a couple of 4s, so he succeeds twice. But you might also notice that he has a forecasting penalty of -3 successes. So that forecasting penalty, it hits right here in episode 1 when you're doing your episode 1 roll. So total, he came out with -1. But this is a great example of how to do a dice roll as a player in the Discord server. He says basically, here's what I'm trying to do, here's my goal in the story, here's what my obstacle is, here's all the numbers, so all the information that you need is right there. And then what happens next is, let's see, then the GM goes and dictates what happens. Now this is going to be, I'm going to use this as a good example of what happens, because sometimes as a GM you're tempted to just say, oh, you tried to do this thing, you failed your roll, you fail, we're done. And actually, also, side note, instead of writing failure, failure, failure on everyone that failed, I started writing setback instead, because I feel like that, I don't know, that seems a little less negative. It seems a little more designed to keep the player moving forward in the story, because they understand it's not like they're done, it's just a setback. So what was non-Newtonian's setback, because that forecasting penalty really hit him hard? Well, his character's name is Cecil, and I wrote setback. Cecil was able to tap into the data transmission tower's operating system even without the need to penetrate the facility. It was set up on the roof of the town hall, and from a nearby concealed perch, he was able to hack into their mainframe, undetected and unstoppable. A simple change to their broadcasting ID should be enough to knock it into an obscure bandwidth, without anyone being the wiser. Cecil turned off his device, logged back in, and tested the local broadcast channels. Perfection! They were talking to nobody. But something was off. Checking his subroutines, Cecil felt a cold chill settle between his shoulder blades. Somebody was accessing his own device at this very moment. How? Did they have his physical location? Did they know what he was doing? Could they track him? Calculating the risk, he pulled the power unit from his data scroll and watched it fizzle into darkness. Alone in the frozen hillside, he watched his breath mist for a minute, then decided it was best to relocate. Relocate fast. And then I have a little mechanical note here. GM mechanical note. Cecil succeeded in severing communications between the city of Voltide and the outside CCA, Central City Authority. But he is hit with the negative condition, paranoia, on his intellect category. So that's an example where if you have a player and they're going to try to do something in the story, even if they fail their dice roll, you don't have to make them fail at what they're trying to do. You can let them get their story goal and just hit them with a negative condition of some kind. Because that way, the players don't always feel totally impotent if they tend to fail a lot of dice rolls. They can still be doing things, they can still be impacting the story, and things move forward. Now, from a Game Master perspective, here's an interesting what if. What if you have a player that succeeds, but they dictated some kind of a crazy, ludicrous goal? Like, what if their goal was, I have the goal of splitting into 5 of myself and pulling the sun down and ending the world? Like, what if they roleplayed that as, their character's objective, and then they succeed in their dice roll? As a Game Master, what do? Well, it's pretty easy. That's one of the reasons I like this system. It puts a lot of responsibility on you as a Game Master, but it also makes so that the player can try literally anything they want. Because if they try to do something that's just banana sandwich like that, so what they do is, they declare something insane if they want to, then they roll their dice, and as the Game Master, it's your responsibility to say what really happens. So even if they succeed, you can still dictate something like, okay, so your character is out there spinning in the middle of the town square, he thinks he's going to be dividing into 5 people and pulling the sun down and destroying the world, and he's out there spinning, and even though those things don't happen, you succeeded in your dice roll, so you get some other result that is good. Maybe there's some chick that thinks that your character is a great dancer based on what she can see, so she goes up and offers you information about this part of the story that will become relevant. And so, hey, there's your success. So, as a Game Master, if there's a player that just, they want to do something that doesn't make sense with the story, it's really not integrating with how things are supposed to go, you can kind of guide it right back on track with how you narrate it. So the players can try anything, and then you can, succeed and let them be rewarded, but you reward them in a way that actually is confluent with the story. Yeah, words fail me. But anyways, for the characters that succeed, well, the characters that fail, they get hit with a negative condition, and that gives them a little bit of a limp moving into the next episode. But the characters that succeed, we have rewards set up. So what are the rewards, besides the obvious story bonuses and succeeded at goals in the story context? Reward 1, we give them a positive condition. The player attaches a positive condition to one of their character's base stats. It'll last throughout this arc and give a +1 dice bonus to that base stat when they're rolling stuff in there. It's pretty cool. Reward 2 is a +1 success, which is basically any time before they do a roll, they can spend that success point to have it automatically added to whatever their result is. So that's a little bit more of a sure thing, but it's a one-time only use. And Reward 3, this is the fun one. I'm hoping we get at least one person tries this so that we can, test it out. Reward 3 is an assassination attempt. The player may initiate an immediate one-on-one trial by 3 battle with a player from an opposing faction. And the nice thing about a trial by 3 battle is I believe that even if you go in totally healthy, it is possible that you could be killed in that battle. Not likely, but possible. So, that is how Episode 1 is supposed to work. Players decide what their goal is, they choose their own skill, they roll it, and then if they fail, they get a negative condition. If they are successful, they get to choose one of these positive conditions, and then that plays out. And then after all these things are done, next up, we have to actually give players the rewards, so we're going to test that out, and then we're going to test out recruiting, which leads into Episode 2, and on the faction war goes. Quick side note also, when I was giving people this information in the overall story, I also gave them a couple little maps, because I think as a game master, it's nice to give people a little bit of context, a little bit of information. That kind of helps them when they're trying to decide, hey, how does my character approach this situation? It helps if they know at least a little bit about the situation. You don't want to drown them in details, but you want to at least give them a little something to work with. So here we have a map. That's the location of this town that we're playing, this mining town in the district of Ruskol. There it is, Voltide. And I also did one map that's a little bit more close up. We have the overall region, there's some mountains, town halls there's a residential district, a working class district. You see the roads that go in and out of the town, which is actually kind of relevant because this town is remote. So if you block off one of those roads, which happens to have been something that one of the players did, if you block off one of those roads, no one's getting in and out of that area. Then you have like the Praxis Industries north and south complexes, because it's a mining town. This industry is huge for that town. So yeah, you can see just looking at the map, looking at how things are laid out, it gives players a little something to sink their teeth into. And we had a lot of really great Episode 1 role plays, and oh man, it was really fun. The players are creative. They think up all these cool things to do. They think up all these different ways to try to integrate themselves in the situations. You have some people that are doing social-based roles where they're going in and they're trying to extract information or loyalty from key characters in the setup story. Some characters are doing physical roles. They were trying to block off roads or do things like that or track each other. Or some characters were investigating the crime scene. So yeah, when you give players that initiative, I think Episode 1 really comes to life. So that is Episode 1. We playtested it. It's fun. And I'm looking forward to playtesting Episode 2. And then I can tell you guys exactly how that works.